Hey, how's it going? And welcome to my video where I will show you how I got the platinum trophy for Assassin's Creed 3. And we're starting off early with the first trophy I managed to get called Rude Awakening. And I got this trophy by doing the unthinkable and re-entering the Animus. This is where we get introduced to our first protagonist called Haytham Kenway. Haytham wastes absolutely no time and just gets his ass to America from Britain and puts together his own little team to help rule America. These people with power make a few deals over a few points. It's nice to see that nothing has changed since then. While in the middle of one of their plans, I managed to get the next trophy, and it was called What's For Ye Won't Pass Ye By. And you get this for using a human shield against a fire line 5 times in a row. And how I got this trophy is just by restarting the same mission over and over again because it was brutal. And once that plan was complete, I got my next trophy called Mystery Guest. And how I got this trophy is just by completing the first sequence and the second sequence in the game. Trust me, all the trophies aren't this easy or that quick. While in America, Haytham doesn't just put together a band of people or plans into place. He also falls in love with one of the natives. And of course, she's in love with him too. Aww. And speaking of the group, we get a massive surprise along with another trophy called How Do You Like Them Apples? And how I acquired this trophy is just by completing DNA sequence 3. And this is after hearing a bombshell of a twist. I think when this first came out, everyone got a shock from it. And we say goodbye to Haytham for now because we're going to play as the actual main protagonist of this game, Connor, Haytham's son, who he does not know exists, so he lives with the tribe. And we got our first trophy with Connor, and the name of that trophy was called Heroes Are Born. And how I acquired this trophy is by completing DNA sequence 4. All you do to complete this sequence is just hunt down stuff and collect stuff. And the next trophy I managed to acquire was called By Invitation Only. And how you get this trophy, it's very simple. All you have to do is be invited by a club, and that is the simplest part of this because you have to do all they ask for a future trophy. Connor has to be trained as an assassin, and the only way to be trained as an assassin is to meet the leader, which is Achilles. And it's a great first impression of Achilles because he just ends up beating up a child. This part's actually amazing because Connor hasn't been trained yet, but yet he fights like a true full-bred assassin. In fact, this is the actual fight that impresses Achilles enough to train Connor. Once Achilles is done training Connor a little bit, he brings him into town for one of his most dangerous tests yet, shopping. And it is quite dangerous because Connor gets set up for a murder. But what Connor did do is save the life of a man that was drowning, and in return they decide to stay in his land and give him stuff, like giving him a pain in the arse. And they're just the first of many that will be moving in on the homestead that will produce services, and they do all tie into a trophy later on. And new neighbors is not the only thing Connor gets. He also gets a new ship and a new quartermaster. And I say it's new, but it's just new to Connor. It was actually sitting there dilapidated until Connor got the money to fix it up. There are also missions and trophies that tie into using this ship. And speaking of trophies, the next trophy that I managed to unlock was called The Day the Templars Cried. And how I got this trophy is just by completing DNA sequence 5. This is also the sequence where Connor finally gets to wear his robes and gets called an assassin. And then we take a break from Connor and we start playing as Desmond. And Desmond does a bit of traveling where he has to go find a magic MacGuffin that powers the magic cave. This gave me the next trophy, and it was called Crisscross, which I got for completing the modern day skyscraper. And while trying to find that magic MacGuffin, you also run into an old assassin. And now we're back as Connor, and he finds and recruits his very first assassin. And as everybody knows, the best way to recruit an assassin is to get them out of a tight situation. Connor goes to the Boston Harbor to help his friends dump tea into the harbor because they reckon it's too expensive. I'm sure not many have heard of this. It's called the Boston Tea Party, I think. I don't think it was too important of a history event. And then I managed to acquire my next trophy, which is called Tea is for an Englishman. And how I acquired this trophy is just by finishing all of DNA sequence 6. To complete it, all I had to do was have a conversation with a Templar, make the world's biggest cup of tea at the Boston Harbor. What would you do if you were the enemy and you seen Connor charging across the field with no fear in his eye, holding a tomahawk? I'd be going so quick that fella would be charging after my dust. This brings me to the next trophy I managed to get, which is called The White of Their Eyes. I got this for completing DNA sequence 7. You get this for telling everyone that the British are coming and for having a battle on Bunker Hill. And like any typical hero, of course, Connor gets himself arrested. And Connor pulls a Shawshank Redemption and gets out of prison. Because Connor's not just brawn, he is also brain. And this brings me to the next trophy I managed to acquire called Caged Wolf, which I got for completing sequence 8. And how I got this is by escaping the prison and taking out Washington's assassin, but also being at a meeting where they signed something called the Declaration of Independence, whatever the Christ that is. And then we're back as Desmond, where he decides to sneak in to watch a UFC fight in Brazil. Okay, he may just really be there to find a power MacGuffin. This led to the next trophy called Daddy Dearest, which you get for completing the modern day stadium, which includes robbing the magic MacGuffin from the MMA fight and then getting out of a massive chase. And now we're back with Connor, where he gets something he's never had before, a family reunion with his dad. And after doing some Batman detective detective work with his outfit, Connor realizes that the man he wants is on a ship, so he goes on board the man's ship, and this led to my next trophy, which was called 2 If by Sea. And all I did to get this trophy was complete DNA Sequence 9. Some of the missions in DNA Sequence 9 were the father and son dynamic duo and bringing down your man on the ship. The next trophy that I managed to pop was called Circus Act, and I got this for unaliving 15 guards with 1 cannonball shot. And I think this proves that Connor's like the John Wick of American Revolution times. And this also leads to the next trophy I managed to get called Grim Expectations. And how you get this trophy is by completing DNA Sequence 10. And some of the missions are firing a cannon for the first time and convincing Washington that someone is trying to unalive him. And once again, we're back with Desmond, and he grants us one more trophy, which was called The End Is Nigh. And how you get this is by completing the present day Abstergo, because Desmond's daddy got kidnapped and he had to go rescue him. And back with Connor again, the next trophy we get was called Difficult End. And how I got this trophy is by completing DNA Sequence 11. Some of the missions in there were taking out one of the creepiest men I've ever seen and having an absolute mad You Sunk My Battleship game. Connor has to be one of the most beastly assassins throughout any of the franchise in the game. He needs some more recognition, really. On to the next trophy, which was called Perfectionist. And how you acquire this trophy is by completing all the optional objectives throughout the main story. They were an absolute pain in the ass and continued to be a pain in the ass. And this brought me on to my next trophy, which was called The Sum of Truth, which I got for completing DNA Sequence 12. I find it kind of weird how I got this trophy after the Perfectionist trophy. Desmond gets us our next trophy, which was called No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. And how I acquired this trophy is by getting Desmond to open a magic door with the magic MacGuffins he stole and decided to unleash an Aurora Borealis on the world. And then the name of this next trophy I managed to get was called Finn. And how I managed to unlock this trophy was completing all the epilogue missions after the credits. And one of them was just a fast travel to a location. Could you imagine how different everything would have turned out if Connor just stayed with his tribe and never met Achilles? I wonder what that would have turned out like. Well, we're gonna find out, because the DLC was included with this game, where Connor is still an absolute beast of a man but goes around with his mother instead of anyone else this time. And the first trophy I get in this DLC is called Uniquely Familiar. And how you get this trophy is just by playing through the story and getting a gift from your mom, which is the Hidden Blades. Connor still has all his fighting knowledge as well. This DLC includes Connor getting powers, and one of them powers is turning invisible, but it has the name Wolf Cloak, which is just absolutely awesome. He also gets another power along with this, and it's to summon a pack of wolves. And this leads me to my next trophy, which was called Eyewitness. And how I got this trophy is by watching a predator take down an enemy. The best way to get the trophy was using Connor's power to call in his pack of wolves. The next trophy that I managed to get was called West Point Payback. And how I got this trophy is by defeating the original Benedict Arnold, and Connor just gets knocked the fuck out by your man. The next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Frequent Flyer, and I got this trophy by traveling 1 kilometer by eagle flight. This is also a new power Connor acquired, where you can turn into an eagle and fly away. And speaking of powers, this next trophy that I unlocked was called A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. How I got this trophy was by unaliving 25 people while cloaked. There's 3 powers in this game, but this has to be the most useful one I found. The next trophy that I managed to pop was called Blindsided, and I got this for defeating Putnam. And this is why the wolf one is the most useful, because I didn't even have to move and he got unalived. And the last power that Connor acquires is the bear one, where he can slam the ground, yeet guards, and destroy objects around him. And the next trophy that I managed to unlock was called Aftershock. And how I got this trophy is by using bear might to yeet 125 guards away from Connor. Not this one guard though, he had more than 3 brain cells. And this leads to the next trophy that I managed to gain called First in Our Hearts. And I got this trophy for showing how brutal Connor can be against anyone that goes against him, including Washington. Even with the apple, Connor can beat him. The last few DLC trophies are just cleanup, and that leads us to the next one called Frontiersman. And how you get this trophy is just by 100% in all the frontier in the DLC. It's just collecting a lot of stuff. And the next trophy that I gained was the new Tea Party, and it's very similar to the last trophy, the Frontiersman, where all you have to do is get 100% in Boston. And the next trophy that I managed to unlock was called If I Can Make It There. And once again, it's the same as the other 2 trophies, where all you have to do is get 100% in New York. And that's the end of the DLC. So back to the normal Connor. So let's get into the next trophy that I managed to get called House Party. And how I got this trophy is by recruiting people to come to the homestead and actually seeing their house built. I wish they did this in more Assassin's Creed games. The next trophy that managed to pop was called Tumble Home. How you unlock this trophy is by upgrading Connor's ship, the Aquila. And this was just one upgrade. And the next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Multitasking. And how I got this trophy was by getting 50% of the progress tracker done, and there was still so much more to do. And the next trophy that managed to pop was called Entrepreneur Not Pirate. And how I got this trophy is by completing all 12 private tier contracts. The next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Jägerbomb. And to get this trophy, Connor has to go on an absolute rampage till he becomes Minotaurus, and then he has to kill some elite guards that come out of fucking nowhere. And the next trophy that I managed to make pop was called Man of the People, and you get this for unlocking all the districts in Boston and New York, but you have to do both of them anyways. And the next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Blowing in the Wind, and how you get this trophy is by collecting all of Benjamin Franklin's floating pages for one of his inventions. And the next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Bringing Down the House, and you get this for exploring Fort Walcott. The only way to explore Fort Walcott is by finding all the peg legs trinkets. I don't know what they are and I don't want to know. This also leads to the next trophy called Kid Gloves, and how you get this trophy is by exploring Oak Island, which you can only get after giving Pegleg all his trinkets and getting the letters about James Kidd. The next trophy that I managed to unlock was called Spit Roast, and how you acquire this trophy is by assassinating 2 guards at once using a musket. It sounds a lot worse than it actually is, my god. And the next trophy I got is still as brutal, and it was called Predator. How you get this trophy is by getting rid of guards' fear of heights by using a rope. I'm sure it also gives them a pain in the neck as well. And this trophy wasn't as rough as the last one, and it's called a complete set. And how you get this trophy is by getting all the freeloaders that you can find and inviting them to stay on the homestead. And the next trophy that I added to the list was called In Good Standing. And what you have to do to get this trophy is complete all 3 challenges by one of the clubs. The Hunting Club is the first one I finished and hated. This next trophy wasn't as annoying though, and it was called Magnum Cum Laude. And how you manage to acquire this trophy is by letting one of your trainee assassins reach the full rank of assassin. The next trophy that I managed to get my hands on was called Patent Not Pending. And how I managed to get this trophy is by bringing in my interior decorator Benjamin Franklin and getting one of his inventions off him to decorate the manor. Back to the sea for this next trophy that I managed to get called All Washed Up, and I got this for completing all the naval missions aboard Connor's ship the Aquila. You also needed to do all the optional objectives throughout the naval missions, and they were a pain. The next trophy that I managed to unlock was called Prince of Thieves, and how I managed to unlock this trophy is just by looting a convoy without murdering any of the guards. I spent far too long trying to find a convoy to get this trophy. The next trophy that I managed to get is called Runner of the Woods. I refuse to pronounce the actual name of the trophy because I will butcher it. And to get this trophy, all you have to do is exchange pelts at the general stores throughout New York, the Frontier, and Boston. Since we're on the topic of selling, the next trophy that I managed to get was called Monopoly Man. And this was a fairly easy and straightforward trophy. All you have to do is send a convoy to Boston, New York, and the Frontier all at the same time. The next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Completionist. And how you get this trophy is by getting a massive pain in your ass and completing all the progress trackers in the game. And staying with the theme of pain in the ass, the next trophy I managed to get was called Original Gamer. And how you unlock this trophy is by playing Fanorama, Morris, and Bowls and winning all 3 of them at the homestead. And by the time I got this trophy, I felt like evicting everyone on the homestead. This game right here was the Morris game, and my god, it was infuriating. And this last trophy I got was no exception to being infuriating. And the name of this trophy was called An Extraordinary Man. And how you manage to get this trophy is by scanning all the people on your homestead. And then finally, the Platinum Trophy popped. And this game had far too much to do just to get the Platinum Trophy, but I still enjoyed it. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching my video. I also hope to see you in the next one, and goodbye.